Dr. Buckley to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. You know, throughout this session, the Public Education Committee has focused very hard on really things that drive dollars to the classroom, that improve classroom discipline, that support our teachers, and really work around the framework that makes our schools work. But at the heart of all of that is always going to be
Mr. Speaker,
what is good for parents.
Mr. Speaker,
and parental rights, and a parent's
Mr. Anchia, for what purpose?
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield for some questions?
yes.
The gentleman yields for questions.
Chairman Buckley, you probably heard a lot of testimony related to this bill, did you not?
Yes, sir.
Would you detail any testimony that you received related to pride clubs or LGBT clubs? Did you hear complaints?
Yeah. We heard
Specifically about LGBT clubs?
Yeah, I don't recall specific testimony in regard to that.
Would you characterize them as sex clubs?
I'm sorry?
Would you characterize them as sex clubs, as the
Yes.
author did?
I'm not advised the way the author characterized it, but I think
Well, I represent to you that he characterized them as sex clubs. Do you believe LGBT pride clubs, GLAD on high school campuses, I'm sure you're aware of these different clubs, would you characterize them like the author did as sex clubs?
I'm not advised of those types of clubs. I don't recall any clubs like that in my district, so I can't characterize what the focus of those clubs are. But I do know the focus of testimony throughout, and the theme of testimony has been just overall parental consent, that parents are the primary decision makers in the lives of their children, and we return that power to
Chairman
them
Buckley,
through this bill.
as a parent, if I wanted to give my child explicit consent to be part of a pride club, what does this bill do to that parental consent?
You certainly have parental consent to that. If the bill precludes that type of club from being established, well, then you certainly have the opportunity to help your child engage in any types of activities outside of school.
But specifically in school, if I wanted to give my child the ability to get together with their friends and have a pride club, as a parent, and I consented to that, the government in this bill is saying, I can't do that, right?
Yeah, I think what we're saying is that we're going to view our children as children, and that they're all important, and that they have way more in common than they have in differences, and we want to return that so that children can gather together in things that are community-minded and such, where they can share experiences together throughout their school year, like we always have.
And Pride Club wouldn't qualify as being community-minded or a shared experience, in your view?
I think it's more narrowly focused, and it's based on a characteristic that this bill does not allow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, clearly the bill doesn't allow it, right? And that's what I'm taking issue with.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering why one would characterize it as not having a social purpose or not being the sharing of community. Do you know what happens in these clubs? Do you have any idea?
I do. I'm not advised of the inner workings of those types of clubs. And like I said, I'm not aware of those clubs in my district. I've never seen them in operation in any of the schools in my district.
And I'll go back to your earlier response that but in your testimony you did not hear of any problems related to these clubs, right? In the testimony you heard, or you can't remember any specific instances, I think was your statement.
Yeah, no, I know we had 96 hours of testimony over however many days of hearings, and I don't recall individual testimony on individual bills, you know, in particular, but I don't recall that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so, members, what I would encourage you to do is to think that the fundamental issue at stake here today is the parents' right to drive the educational setting that their child attends, and to make sure that is one where parents' rights are respected, and that is always, when in doubt, ask the parent, and I ask you to support Senate Bill 12.
The chair recognizes Ms. Gonzalez of El Paso to speak against the bill.